Hey, good morning, everybody.
Hi,
Welcome.
everyone.
Welcome to Mondays with Moss or Moss and Judy. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. It's beautiful out.
Isn't
It's
it gorgeous?
Yep.
It's like a spring day here in Newtown Square.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting outside on the deck for a little bit.
I
And,
saw you.
yeah, can't wait to get back there and do nothing. So we are now moving towards the end, not at the end yet, because we have a few more topics around building a relationship that you really can thrive in and not just survive in. We spent some time looking at knots and tangles. Remember that whole series, Judy?
I
Knots
do.
and tangles?
Yeah.
How we screw things up by judging, advising, being right, taking things personally, interrupting. You can find all this stuff on my YouTube channel. I think it's called Mondays with Moss. But now I think we're talking about something which is more positive,
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking about how do you enhance, how do you build a relationship. And I think there are two key skills, according to Brent Atkinson. He's done a lot of research in marital and relationship success. One is you have to know how to handle disappointments and upsets without freaking out. Because most of us do not learn how to handle upsets and disappointments very well. Do you think that's so?
Well, I think most of us kind of observe what our parents do or the
Yeah.
other adults in our vicinity,
Yeah.
and we take our cues as to what's acceptable
Uh-huh.
from watching the people around us.
Yeah, so we kind of repeat what we learned.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Either that, or we decide we want to do exactly the opposite.
Oh,
And
okay.
then sometimes we do the opposite, but it gets the same result.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you go 180, it doesn't change that much.
No,
Okay.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
I
very
think
good.
that's true.
All right, so we're looking at two areas. One is how do you handle upsets and disappointments? We're done with that. I think we did 5 of those.
Okay.
And now we're looking at what can you do to enhance, to build the emotional bond in a relationship, whether that's your marriage or between you and your child, you and your parent,
Uh-huh.
you and your colleague.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a number of them. I think we've done 6. We've done stop judging and start being curious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a big one.
Curiosity.
Giving up judging. I like
Oh,
curiosity a
yeah.
lot. I'm curious about what you
I
think.
think people do tend to judge.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we judge by our own ideas of
Right.
how things should be or not
Exactly.
be or whatever.
But if you take the time to be curious about someone else's point of view, well, then you catch your breath, and usually then the other person might say, well, how do you see it?
Yeah, you might even learn something.
You might. So you can stand your ground without putting the other person down. Well, I don't see it the same way. This is how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to fight about it. It's just a point of view. There's also seek to understand first, rather than being understood first.
Right. Well, that goes along with curiosity. I mean, how are you going to
Mhm.
understand somebody else unless you're actually curious and interested and ask them what they think or how they feel about something, not assume.
Yeah, don't you think if you can let go of these knots and tangles and just say, I know I tend to judge or do a power struggle, like I'm right, you're wrong, but I'm not going to do that because I really am focusing on building our relationship. And I think a real good skill, this goes back decades, back to the work of Stephen Covey, maybe even before, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek to understand first.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would we do that? Why would, if you and I are having a disagreement, and we don't go into knots and tangles, why would one of us or both of us choose to seek to understand first rather than, let me tell you what I'm thinking. Let me explain my point of view. Why is seeking to understand? why is that better?
Well, I think if you're going to have a conversation
Yeah.
about some issue, all right, with your partner or whoever, and you don't really have correct information
Oh,
about how they feel or what they're thinking or how they put things together to
Mhm.
understand them, then you run a big risk of getting off on you're on the wrong track
I
because
see.
you're not even talking about what's actually real.
What do
You're
we,
talking about whatever you imagine
oh, I see.
is real.
We get into a story in our mind
Yeah.
about what the other person is thinking,
Right.
saying, or intending. But if we take the time to say, help me better understand what we're talking about here. What's your point of view?
Yeah.
I could become more emotionally intelligent because now I'm getting the information straight from the horse's mouth
Which seems like, to me, the intelligent thing to do.
rather than sticking my head in the horse's mouth. Okay?
Right. I would advise that.
Okay, then the fourth one we talked about was to give equal regard. Make sure you, if you're taking up some space, make sure you say to the other person, look, I know I've been talking for a while. How do you see it? Isn't that respectful? Just to make sure we're kind of going back and forth?
I think it is. In fact, I think all of these
Yeah.
points that you're making are undergirded by the idea of being respectful of somebody else.
I think,
Not assuming what a person
Right.
thinks, asking them what they think. Not assuming your
Yeah.
view is more important than their
I like
view.
being
So I think it's all
respectful
about
and also being
respect.
generous in your listening.
That too, yeah.
Another big one is often when couples start to talk, they kind of descend into an argument or a debate and they get stirred up. I see this a lot in my couples work.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful if one partner could say, I maybe reach out and say, hey, look, I know it seems like we're having a disagreement here, but it's just a disagreement over this topic. I'm not angry at you. I am upset over this issue, but I want you to know I love you, I care about you, so can we continue to talk about this for a while? Give assurance.
Okay. So that's really be hard on the problem,
Yeah.
not the person.
I like that. Be hard on the problem,
I
not
think
the
that's
person.
what you're talking about.
Exactly. And then last time we talked about identify and explain what's at stake. They get to what's under the surface. What's the real issue?
Like, why is this important to me?
Yeah. Why am I getting so upset? What do I really, really want? Okay. So we're not going to go into all those again. You can see those either on the Facebook replays or go on YouTube. But today
Yes.
we have another building the emotional bond, which is number 7. Going back to curiosity.
Ah.
Being curious about your partner's world. Being curious. All right.
Okay.
So I often find myself, I'm not sure if you do this, saying to my clients, or even to you, Judy, I'm curious, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I've been thinking about this, but I'm wondering what you think. Or I've been thinking about you today, I'm curious how your day went today. I find curiosity a real good opening for connection. Do you?
I know you like curiosity.
I do, I really do. I really do.
You pride yourself in
It
being
keeps
a
me-
curious person.
Well, it keeps me out of trouble. It keeps me out of being judgmental.
Yeah.
So, why is curiosity about the other person's world? We work hard, all of us do. We get caught up in our own egocentric concerns,
Yeah.
money, work, children, illness. You know, like for example, I'm getting over a case of shingles, hopefully. And shingles is very uncomfortable, even though I got my shots and everything. So I'm working hard not to judge myself. I think I understand what triggered it, but it's a painful phenomenon. It's an experience, a painful experience. But I work hard to say, okay, we're doing this talk today, and I'm deciding to not let that pull me off track, and be curious about how you and I can support each other to move through this short conversation. So curiosity. For me, I mean, what do you go to when you're struggling with something if it's not curiosity?
I mean, not exactly sure what you're asking
Well,
me, but
when you're struggling with something, what helps you regain perspective and get refocused?
well, I try and pull back.
Okay.
So, right, if I'm struggling with something, I'm sort of right up against it.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things I try to do is take a step back and look at the bigger picture, if there is a bigger picture.
Well, that's a good one.
Like,
Right.
for me, sometimes if I'm struggling with, well, how should I handle a certain thing,
Yeah.
I'll take a step back and I'll think about, well, what do I think the right thing to do is?
Okay.
Or what are my choices that I have? Or I might come to you or somebody else that I'm close to
Uh-huh.
have a conversation to get some feedback about my thinking or some ideas
So you,
because they
so
may
you
have
regain
different
perspective
That's what I'm trying to do.
rather than getting caught up in what's in front of you.
Right.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. So this notion of being curious about your partner's world, how does that look like? Like, when you go to work, because I know you love work, okay. When you go to work,
Yeah.
do you remain curious about me?
Well, sometimes, occasionally, I have a thought about what you're doing.
Yeah, like what kind of
know,
thought?
or whatever. But no, because when I go to work, I'm curious about my clients.
Oh, I see.
Right. So I'm focused on my clients and the
Okay.
people I'm spending time with. When I come home,
Like when you're driving home, you
That-
become curious. I'm pathetic.
you're jumping to when I get here and
Yeah.
you're here,
Yeah, yeah.
then I'm always curious about how your day was.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's great because I have that same kind of energy. When I see you come through the door, I hear
Yeah.
you. When I hear the garage door go, I
Ah.
feel like a dog. Whoop, 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 whoop. She's home. And I'm curious about how your day was.
Uh-huh.
What did you experience? What worked? What didn't work? What kind of massive failure or mistake
Did
did
I
you have
experience
today?
today?
Yeah. What are we going to have for dinner? Whatever. So this notion of being curious about your partner's world is very important. So it's like what we find that, going back to the research on young couples having children, when they have a baby, about almost 70% of couples report dissatisfaction, a reduction in satisfaction in their relationship. Why? Because often the mom, the new mom, becomes totally preoccupied with the baby. That fills the mom's world. It makes sense. You know, the maternal instinct.
Biologically.
Biologically. And the husband, you know, all of a sudden loses a partner unless he's prepared to be curious about what was your day like? How did the baby do? What did you struggle with? So if the husband can do that, maintain curiosity, and if the new mother or wife can maintain interest and curiosity about, tell me about your day, and not just get so caught up in the bottles and the milk and the diapers and the exhaustion, all of which makes very good sense to me as to where the mom's energy is going to go. But I do find, tell me if this you notice this too, often when a baby comes into the house, you lose your couplehood and you get caught up in this triangle with the baby. And often you lose curiosity about each other.
I think that happens a
Yeah.
lot. It's pretty intense time.
Yeah, really.
And unless, I mean, in our society, it's not typical for both mothers and fathers to have some kind of leave of absence from work,
Right,
so that both of them
right.
are
the
tending
same
to the
time.
baby at the same time and
Right.
bonding with the baby at the same time. So often there's this split
Yeah.
between the mom home with the baby
Yes, like
and the
She becomes
and the
absorbed.
father continuing to go out to work. Well,
And-
maybe not in the pandemic, but
Yeah.
in general.
And he can
and
become jealous.
So their worlds are different.
He can become jealous and feel
I
left
think
out.
that happens a lot.
A lot. I think
Yeah.
it does too. We take it for granted that grown-ups shouldn't feel that way over the baby. However, about 30% of couples maintain a good relationship. They don't get irritated. They don't go into judgment. And I think it's because they have a sense of curiosity. Tell me what your day was like. Not just about her day and her exhaustion, but tell me about your day to the spouse who's working. What was it like for you? What did you struggle with today?
They're both work.
Pardon me? They're
They're
both.
both
Oh,
work.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's just different.
Okay, so maybe what we're talking about is obvious, because people who succeed in relationship, whether that's having a baby in the family or not, make it their business to know stuff about their partners, what their partners like, what their partners are struggling with, what their partner's desires are, what their partners like for a snack. Like often I'll say to you, if you're coming home late, because you come home later than I do, because I work from home mostly now,
Yeah.
I might say to you, is there anything you'd like me to get at
You,
the store?
you almost always ask me that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I know me. If I don't ask her, I'm going to go and get what I want. And she doesn't like Mexican food and sushi. You know, she looks at me like, we get that stuff again? Can't we get real food? Yeah, so the key today, I think, is very simple. people who devote cognitive room, being thoughtful about their partners,
Yes.
what their struggles are, what they're interested in, how their day was. Do they fulfill on an intention? Now, I don't think you like this idea of having an intention, but an intention is, I was talking to my friend Jeff this morning, for example, we were doing releasing, and he asked me what my intention was for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, my intention for today is to move into the day with courage, with joy, and generosity.
What a lovely intention.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Do you keep that in mind the whole day?
No, I try to.
That's the problem, right?
I try to.
It's keeping in mind, keeping in touch
Yeah.
with your intention. If you can do that,
Yeah,
then that's great, because that frames your whole day,
Right.
all your interactions, because you have that intention to bring generosity
Yeah.
or curiosity or whatever into those.
now in a relationship, I mean, that's for me as an individual.
Yeah.
But for me, in my couplehood with you, my intention is to stay in connection and be curious.
Okay, I like that.
It's very simple,
Mhm.
okay? So even though I don't see you for 8, 10, 12 hours,
Yeah.
I become curious about when you come home, hey, because each day to me seems like a discovery. It's not like a redundancy,
Mm-hmm.
even though we do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But if I keep the curiosity going, I say, Judy, tell me, what's going on with you today? How was it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what were your wins, your losses? Can I tell you about what I went through today? It adds real fun to it, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm glad you're having fun.
I am, I do. I have fun with you. So anyway, that's it for today. The building the emotional bond, number 7, is be curious about your partner's world. Don't assume anything that you know about with your partner. I like the idea of see with children's eyes.
Yeah.
See with children's eyes when your spouse, your partner,
Mm-hmm.
when you see somebody at work. Don't assume your secretary, your partner, your client, your friend, your daughter is the same as yesterday. Be curious and say, I was thinking about you. I was just wondering how your weekend went. Not from the standpoint of exactly what did you do, but anything happened over the weekend that kind of was important to you.
Very wise.
I think so. Anyway, that's it, folks. Anything else you want to say?
No. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Now remember, we have 3 more resources that you can use to build emotional bond. So we're not galloping, we're getting closer like a horse to the stable. Once we're done with this series, then we'll pause and we'll figure out what do we want to do next. Okay?
I'm curious.
Oh my God, I love that. That's really great.
Yeah, all right.
So be curious about your partners, everybody. Good to
Bye-bye.
see you. Good to see you guys. Thanks for checking in. Bye-bye.